Hi, everyone. This is Dee, your favorite self love and mindset coach. And welcome back to the Eternal Evolution of Self podcast. I have another beautiful guest with me today. This is Raven. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Dee. My name is Raven Petty, and I am a life coach who is specialized in practical and creative stress management. So I help clients find fun and very easy ways to manage their stress every day and build new habits around that stress.
It's interesting you said fun ways to manage stress. What does a fun way to manage stress look like?
So for me, I like to go to concerts. I also like to have a cocktail occasionally. I may go kayaking or, you know, volunteer at the zoo. Like I really try to make stress management fun. Kind of go beyond. Meditation is great. I do it, often. Yoga is great. But I think the more we can laugh and kind of release ourselves from actual, the physical stress we feel and have a good time, the better we feel overall.
That's great. I love that because laughter is the best medicine, they say, right? But I think getting
Yeah.
away from some of these more traditional methods of stress relief, like the meditating, which I meditate too. And some days I just feel the need to do that. And that's beautiful in that moment. But like you said, getting outdoors and doing things like that too is a great way to de-stress.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to just kind of let your hair down and, kind of party like you did when you were a teenager a little bit, or at least, kind of embrace that youthful vibe, and really kind of, I've even taken like bubbles and gone outside and blown bubbles during like after a meeting or something, or, there's tons of coloring books, just really anything that I think that promotes that feels fun but also kind of gets us out of our head a little bit and helps us to relax and chill out a little bit.
Do you feel like people need to give themselves permission to do things like that? Because I think sometimes when we are adulting, we forget that we're allowed to go have some fun like that. So how would you encourage someone to give themselves permission to go have some fun?
I think you have to plan it. So, unfortunately, being an adult, we have a lot of time restrictions. We have jobs, we have families, we have, other responsibilities. And so when I work with clients, we actually plan that time. So we may say, okay, I'm going to go out to dinner with somebody who I haven't seen in a while. And, we're going to drink wine and we're going to have like a girls' night out. And so we'll take the steps to plan it. It's like, okay, when are you going to call her? When do you want to do this? And then, of course, the accountability of following through. But I think once you make a time commitment to something, you have given yourself permission to do it. So if you make plans to go kayaking or you make plans to sit down and color for an hour, you're automatically going to follow through because then it's in your schedule.
Hmm. And do you find that
Yeah.
that's my life is so different than that? So, do you find that it's difficult for people to even allow themselves to schedule in the time?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of times that's why people even hire a coach really is to hold them accountable for that, to make sure that they do it. But I think it is so essential to our well-being because especially moms, parents, people who have kids and everything, we devote our whole lives to our families, right? So we always put ourselves last, and then we face burnout and depression and anxiety and can hit really, hard bottoms. But if we get ahead of all of that and start to kind of schedule like what I call me time, self-care time or whatever, even if it's just a little bit every day, we avoid all of that. So while some of us have more free schedules than others, I think Just treat it like you would a meeting, or, dropping your kids off at school, or grocery shopping, or, the stuff that you're going to do. We really have to look at our self care and our me time in that same way,
Mhm.
and value it in the same way, that it's
Right.
just as important, if not more so, than all of those other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And about how long does it take, generally speaking? I know it is very individual, but from the time someone starts scheduling that first fun activity till they just automatically put that in their schedule every week, how long does that transition take for most people?
I would say probably about 3 weeks to just really solidify it. But when somebody starts out, it's exciting, it's fun. It's like, okay, I have this time, like, say, between 9 and 9:30 every night, that I'm not really doing anything. So that's when I'm gonna do whatever. And then they do that, and they start to realize, like, how much better they feel, or they laughed a lot, they watched a movie, or they watched funny YouTube pet videos, whatever it is. But once they do it a couple times, they get the physical sense of how they feel, and they realize that maybe they aren't laughing as much as they should, or maybe they're not feeling as joyful as they could, or even gratitude, right? Like,
Yes.
feeling as grateful as they could, and they kind of get more, um, it's almost immediate when they give their self permission to have a little bit more fun every day.
Hmm. And do people who haven't had a habit of scheduling things like this in, do they have a hard time coming up with ideas?
I don't think so. I think what I've noticed is that parents who have kids at home have more time in the evening after they go to bed. And then there's some women who are maybe empty nesters, or they don't have children, or they don't necessarily have that hustle schedule in the morning. They find that time in the morning.
Mhm.
But then there's also, like, I had a client who she wore a wig all day as she worked from home. She put on a wig and jewelry, and she kind of like dressed up, and she did that during her workday because she was working remote and she could, So I think it's pretty easy to find those little pockets of time throughout the day where you can work something like that in.
Mhm. What
Yeah.
about do they have a hard time finding different activities to do? Because I know, and I'm asking that question because I knew a person one time in my life that I said, "Well, what do you like to do for fun?" And there was literally only one thing they could come up with that they like to do for fun. They had no idea what other things they even enjoy. So,
Yeah.
is that a
Yeah.
common
Absolutely.
issue with people that they don't even know what they enjoy anymore?
I think so, and I get a lot of, "I don't know," It's like, "Well, what do you like to do for fun?" "Oh, I don't know." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what did you used to do for fun?" So, before you were a grown up, before you had kids, before you had, partners, whatever, what did you do? We kinda start there.
Yeah.
And so we kind of start, what activities did you enjoy growing up? What did you do when you were a teenager? And from there we can usually find something that sounds fun and interesting and new to try.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it, that we almost completely forget that we ever used to be a non-adult and we used to do all this crazy stuff to have fun and just be silly, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're, I think especially those with corporate jobs, or those who work full time, we have a very rigid schedule. A lot of people who work in an office, or even work remote but have to be on certain hours. You have to work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, whatever it is. So it doesn't leave a whole lot of time to be spontaneous.
Mhm.
But the need is there. It may be deep down within us, but once you kind of find it and realize what it is that kind of makes you feel that youthful energy or that spontaneity again, I think it's really easy to kind of tap into. um, Plus, there are lots of affordable things you can do that are, really cheap. Like a pack of crowns is like 99 cents, and get a piece of paper and you can draw your family, like you did when you were in kindergarten or
Yes.
something. And you've tapped into something a little bit different. So, yeah, it's really a shame. We do kind of forget who we are, and we let go. I think we either suppress it, or we really let go of like our youthfulness and um, our vibrancy as a child and as a teenager. And um, even a lot of us try to fit into that mold of who we're supposed to be, or who we think we're supposed to be, based on whatever, stories we tell ourselves and our beliefs and stuff. So I think it's nice to break free from that sometimes.
Absolutely. I think, well, and I was raised by a dad who was just, my mom called him her biggest kid. He was always cutting up and pulling pranks and being silly. And I mean, I have so many pictures of him where he's just being goofy, and we would play like card games or word games. We played a lot of word games on like Friday nights or whatever. And there was always the game within the game with my dad where he would cheat, but he would cheat on purpose because his whole game was for you to catch him cheating if you could. So I always would tell people if they played with us, if you can't handle that, then don't play, because it's always the game within the game with my dad for you to catch him cheating if you can, so it was a lot of fun. So I had, I still kind of maintained that throughout my adulthood, even when I would take my kids to the grocery store when they were, playing ball and stuff. They weren't like super little at this time. And even as teenagers, we would go, like down the paper goods aisle, and if there was no one around, I would grab a roll of paper towels and I would tell my son, go long. And he'd run down to the end of the aisle and I would throw him the roll of paper towels like it was a football and stuff like that. So I think we get so caught up in being serious as adults because we think that it's immature or childish to play still. But I think it's imperative to hold on to that playfulness throughout your adult years. And I mean, I can't say there haven't been times in my life that I've kind of forgotten that. I've been through some pretty dark stuff. So during that time, but I know during the times of my life when I was being more playful, I felt so much more joy in my life than I did when
Hmm.
I wasn't being playful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what we do, you mentioned those darker times. I think it's really important, even during those darker times. It's hard to laugh, it's hard to play during those darker times, but there are things you can do to not make them even darker. It's like, you want to eliminate any kind of negativity, the stuff that makes you like the news stresses me out. So I don't watch the news first thing in the
Yeah,
morning.
I
I
don't
check
watch
the
it at all.
headlines. Yeah, I'll check headlines. I have to, for other things, but it's like I'll check headlines later on in the day, and then but I don't start my day with it. I don't turn on the TV first thing in the morning. Um, Also, I think the people we hang out with is very important.
Mhm.
So, making sure you're hanging out with the right people. If you're not hanging out with people who don't make you feel that energy and that youthfulness and that joy, then maybe, creating some distance, some space. And so it really, um, while it is easier, I think, to laugh and have fun when you're in a good headspace, there's a lot you can do even during those harder times when it is hard to laugh, or it is, hard to find joy.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it's important that we just keep that in mind, that we don't always have to feel a certain way all the time, that we can change. We can
yeah.
change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is tougher in some situations. And I find throughout the course of my life, when I've had those darker times, it's a creative outlet has always been super helpful for me. Like during my marriage when things were, got really rocky, I would write. I'm a writer, so I wrote a lot of poetry and I actually got published right before, not long before our divorce. So that was really interesting, the timing of that. But yeah, so writing, and then, I'm an artist, so I learned how to make twisted wire trees, and so that kind of stuff is was for me super helpful. I might not have been
Absolutely.
laughing, but I was creating something beautiful, so
Absolutely. And you were able to get out of your head. You were able to
yes,
kind of get out of your what you were feeling for a little bit, just kind of take a break from all of that. I also write. I write professionally, but I like to paint. I like puzzles are great. I'll actually do
yes,
puzzles and frame them and hang them up around the house, like art. Um, there's knitting and crocheting, and for a lot of my, like, if I have male clients, or I have, or even somebody who likes to build things with their hands, I recommend Lego kits are great for stress relief, and have that ability to create something kind of cool. So there's lots of, yeah, I'm all for creating things too. I think it's important for somebody to have a project of some
yes,
kind,
yes,
kind of going on, that they can go to take a break from the daily routines, and something that it doesn't matter if they sell it or give it away or keep it or whatever, but it's something that they made with their own hands.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a kabillion different things that you could do. So, and people are like, well, I don't know how to do anything. Well, I didn't always know how to write. I didn't always know how to make a twisted wire tree. You have to try something new that you might be interested in and just realize that it may not start out looking like it's going to look 5 years from now, but you're starting there. No one starts out as an expert in anything, right? We always
Right.
start out at the beginning. It's always sloppy and messy and uncoordinated when we first begin, but we can hone that skill and make it into something beautiful, more beautiful later, if that's something we choose
Absolutely.
to stick with. So,
Yeah. I think hobbies are important for stress management too. I think a lot of adults don't have time for hobbies. They don't have time to do things like that. But I think they're very important for us to kind of tap into our own ourselves, and what we enjoy doing, and then to also, again, get out of your head, get out of your feelings, and just kind of focus on something else. Um, and trying new things is great. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. i
right,
i had the idea that I was going to, it was a couple years ago, like during COVID, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to play the piano. It is something I've always wanted to do. I played clarinet in school, like in band in middle school, so it's like I can do it. Like, I'm going to learn how to play piano. I tried for like 2 weeks every day for like 30 minutes to an hour. And after 2 weeks, I was like, I'm done. This is not for me.
right,
But the important thing is that I tried, right?
right.
It always kind of bugged me. I didn't enjoy it though, and
Yeah,
because I didn't enjoy it, and it was really hard for me to I was just like, I'm done. So I checked that off the bucket list, and and worked on a new hobby. But at least I tried, and I
right,
found out that it just, yeah, that it wasn't for me, and it didn't take much out of my day, but yeah, so sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't.
right. Yeah, and we think sometimes something like you said, you really wanted to try that. We think it's going to be like this. I think we build up these expectations in our head what it's going to look like and sound like, and then if it's not that, and just, we have to feel in our bodies. That's another thing that you felt in your body, this, even though it sounded like this amazing thing to do, it didn't
Mhm.
bring you joy after a while. It felt probably more tedious, is kind of the word that's popping into my brain right now. And that's okay. It doesn't have to look like
Absolutely. Oh,
what we think.
No, and it caused me stress. So in trying to find something to do to alleviate the stress, I had actually created more stress because I wasn't enjoying doing it. But being aware of that, I was like, why am I still doing this? And so I
Right.
just stopped and moved to something else. But no, but the expectations, right? So when something doesn't meet our expectations, we may get frustrated or feel disappointed. And I think it's really important, especially when we're trying new things for ourselves, that we don't have any expectations. You
Mm,
know, just if you're trying something new or trying to tap into your kid self or any of that youthful energy, that you just go into it like a kid would, with that
yeah.
curiosity instead of the expectation. So what would happen if I did this? And then seeing what happens.
Right. And kids will completely abandon it if it doesn't feel good. Like they'll start out all being
Yep.
all excited and then they'll be like, meh. And that's how many toys go by the wayside, right? Like it was their favorite toy for a week or whatever. And then but they don't have any problem just abandoning that idea and moving on to something else. They don't feel shame. They don't feel judgment.
Nope.
They don't feel regret. They don't feel any of that stuff. They just move on to something else. So we could
They
take a
do.
big lesson from that.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you do if you chose something? So if you picked a new activity to try like tomorrow with that kind of open-minded, non-judgment, but do you know what you would try?
Well, let me just tell you, I can say this about my coaching career actually, because I started out thinking I was going to do this particular thing. And then as I got into it, I was like, that doesn't feel right. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I was like, that's not where it's at either. And then I was like, okay, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to create this program and I'm going to do this. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling that. It just doesn't, like I can't make myself, I couldn't even, like, there's literally parts of it that I couldn't even make myself do because it just didn't resonate with me. So I moved on to the next thing. And then I did have some guilt, which I talked to my Steve about. And I said, I kind of feel bad because I've spent this money on this program and now I'm not even using it. And not only am I not using it, I look at the program and think, I don't even know why I took it because that's obviously something I'm never going to use because it just doesn't make sense
Mhm.
for me as the person that I am. And I feel kind of bad. I feel like I wasted the money. And he goes, don't look at it that way. You know, you tried it and it didn't work out. And now you're just going to do something else. Don't feel guilty about it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I know it's not, and I'm not saying it's been super easy in every single piece of this, but just allowing myself the grace to grow through all of these little pieces and parts of my coaching, and now I'm not even coaching really. I'm doing this podcast, and this is what feels right and true in my soul right now, so I'm at this stage in my life where if it doesn't, I'm not forcing it, but it took me a long
Absolutely.
time to get here and I know it's not always easy to say, just don't do it then. If it doesn't feel right, just don't do it because people feel like they've invested, they have to justify it. And I'm here to tell you, you don't. We think we do, but we don't. We don't have to justify it. It doesn't matter if it looks ridiculous or stupid or whatever to anyone else on this planet. It doesn't matter. I've done quite a few things in my life. I've had quite a few different jobs. I've spent money on schooling for, I used to be a nurse. I had one person in my life that said, well, you're just a quitter. Every time you start something, quit. Well, that's true. But is that bad? Is it bad? If you're quitting something that
Yeah.
is not aligned with your soul and is not bringing you joy in this life, then why is it bad if you quit it? Society
Absolutely.
dictates that if like you'll ask kids, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I've been multiple things since I've grown up, and I'm still evolving into what I want to be when I grow up. And
Mhm.
I'm 54. It looks different for everyone. I mean, there's going to be people that, no, like I want to be a microbiologist when they're knee high to a short grasshopper, as we say down here in the South. And that's what they go to school for, and that's what they do for their entire lives. And they love it. And that's cool when people can do that, but it doesn't look like that for everyone. And it doesn't have to look like that for everyone. So, your question to me personally, what would you do? I'd quit doing it. If I didn't like it, I'd quit doing it. No shame,
Yeah.
no regrets, no justifications, no explanations. I've reached a place in my life where I don't explain myself anymore because what I've realized is people are going to believe whatever they want to believe, whether or not you explain yourself to them. They'll listen to the
Mhm.
conversation, they'll say uh-huh and yes in all the right places, and they'll walk away from you and think whatever they want to think after you're done. So I don't explain myself anymore either. So yeah, just switch it up. Do what feels good.
Yeah. Do what feels good. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I try to do. It's hard when because I do work like a 9 to 5 job, and it's harder on some days than others. But I on my toughest days, so the ones that are the most stressful and the busiest, I know those are the days that I need to have the most fun outside of those hours. So I know if my schedule is going to be really busy, or even like this past weekend, I canceled all of my plans and I stayed home and I watched a Halloween baking show for I think like 7 hours over the weekend. And I cleaned house and I cooked and I did things that really just made me feel better. But I ended up canceling everything that I had planned for the weekend. So, and by saying no to those things, I was able to say yes to me and do what I needed to do. And I think giving us, like you said, the grace, but also the flexibility to do that,
Yes.
to say no, to cancel things. Because when I canceled all those plans, everybody understood. There
Yeah.
was no like, and if they didn't, I don't know about it. So it's not that
Right.
big of a deal. But they got over it, and they were fine and they're all still talking to me and the world just keeps on spinning. So, but what
Yes.
was most important is that I had had such a busy week that I just had to say, no, I can't do this. And really kind of, I don't want to say shut down, but, recharge these very introverted batteries is
Yes.
what I call it. And just kind of recharge everything. So I think being flexible, and saying yes to flexibility helps people
Mhm.
a lot too when it comes to planning new things or trying new things or moving on from something. It's like realizing that not everything is permanent, not
Right.
everything is set in stone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
true. I say sometimes I don't have the emotional bandwidth for certain activities. I just can't. I need to have that quiet time. And, cleaning house for me sometimes is very therapeutic. Like if I have something in my head that I'm needing to figure out, or, just, I don't know, just get over myself, because sometimes we all know we're in a position where we just need to get over ourselves. And, just, I find that's really a great thing to do because it doesn't require anyone's input. You know how to scrub things and dust things and vacuum things, and you get this sense of satisfaction for creating a clean space to live in and breathe in. It's just, and that sounds maybe silly to some people. They're like, how could you possibly enjoy housework? I used to hate it. I really did. I really hated housework. It was awful. I loved having a clean house, but I didn't enjoy the process. And then I don't know,
Hmm.
something clicked and changed in me one day. And it was like, it's the process of creating that clean space. It's just when you look at it in a different way, instead of something that you have to do and something that's so tedious, each little thing you fold up and put away creates a cleaner space. And it just, I don't know, it's therapeutic to me now. It's interesting.
It is. It is. Do you think it had any timing to do with maybe your kids being older? Because I think think like I talk to a lot of moms and they have trouble when they have younger children. So, children 5 and younger, they have trouble keeping a clean house because they have kids.
Yeah,
Kids are messy.
they are.
So do you think it was easier for you to keep like a cleaner space or to have a better outlook on keeping clean space once your children got older?
It really, I think, happened for me after I got divorced because when I was in my
Okay.
marriage, I had been so like oppressed is a good word for so long because he was so controlling that I didn't care. Like I just got to the place in my life where I didn't care and I started like, the handwriting was on the wall. I think, a little while before I got divorced, I started caring a little bit more about things like that. And then after I got divorced, it just felt like something I could do for myself that I did have control of. And I didn't look at it that way when I was married. But after that, it's like it just as without, so within, or as within, so without. So if I felt, you know, if my outside environment could be orderly, then I felt like my inside environment could be more orderly, you know?
Sure, sure. Absolutely. I really feel like clutter actually causes us stress without us realizing it. So, it's like if we don't load the dishwasher or if we don't unload the dishwasher and all the dishes pile up, that's going to cause us some sort of stress. We may just not realize it, but we're going to constantly look at that space and think, I need to do the dishes. I need to do the dishes or the laundry, right? I need to fold the laundry. Um, so it's interesting that, but I love that you felt like during your divorce, maybe things felt kind of out of control, but you realized you had control over your space. And so you were able to put, therapeutic energy into your space and create something that you could be proud of.
Yes.
I think yeah, I think that's a great way to look at housework. I mean, what if we looked at housework as like a creative process as opposed to just a bunch of chores we have to do?
Right.
Yeah, certainly a different perspective.
It is. It
Yeah,
worked for me. I mean, it probably won't work for everyone, but it worked for me. And now I actually enjoy it, and I have
yeah,
enjoyed it for a long time now. And it's really cool because it's more effective for one thing because you want to do it. But like I remember this lady that I knew one time, she said, I've got to go home and I've got to do the dishes so I can cook dinner. And I looked at Steve and I went, "Do the dishes so you can cook dinner." I'm like, that would drive me crazy. If I had to go do my dishes so that I could mess up more dishes, there is no way. I mean, like there's just no way. I mean, not that there's never a dish in my sink. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not like
sure,
OCD about it or anything, but it's I do my dishes. That way when I go to fix my next meal, then I start with a clean workspace, it just feels better to me.
sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've even recommended if housework, for example, stresses somebody else out that much that they switch to paper plates, like paper cups or it and not like permanently, but if you're traveling for work or if you're gone all day and you're trying to rush things, it's like just eliminate it. So if you don't have time to do dishes, then just buy disposable ones for just a little while. Nothing permanent again, but just kind of removing that obstacle. It's like
Right.
cook a quick dinner, but serve it on a paper plate with some paper cups, and then just throw everything away at the end, and then start fresh tomorrow.
Right.
Um, or when things settle, get a little bit more settled. So there's lots and lots of options.
Yeah.
Um, I love cleaning, and I clean every single Saturday morning after I have my coffee. So
Right.
it is that non-negotiable. I don't sleep in. I don't lounge around. I wake up, take the dog out, make coffee, clean house, and that's
Yeah.
that's my Saturday morning. But,
Yeah.
and then of course, I'm at the point, I'm an empty nester, so my son is grown, so it's much easier to keep the house clean,
Yeah.
now that he's gone. So, that's the other thing too is, you do have to take into account people who have multiple family members at home and children and multiple pets and all of that too. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do. And you have to figure out what works for you. You know,
Mhm.
I remember this one time when I was married, I mowed the yard. I did everything outside and inside the house, but I remember I needed it was when my kids were really little and we had a push mower to do like this little fenced area that we had the swing set in and everything because the kids were very small. And the grass was getting deeper and deeper. And I kept telling my ex-husband, hey, I need you to fix the mower so I can mow the yard, and he wouldn't fix it. And so one day right before I knew he was fixing to come home from work, I got that mower up on the porch and I got the tools and I took it all apart. And when he came home, he literally had to step through motor parts and pieces and everything as he came to the door. And I'm like, I'm not even asking you to mow the yard. All I'm asking you to do is fix the mower. Well, he had to put it back together at that point. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's a good idea for everybody to do that, but I'm just saying you have to find what works for you to get the things done that you need to do. Like when my kids were little, I
Absolutely.
would be like, the toy fairy is going to come if you don't pick up your toys. And what that meant was the toy fairy was going to come and gather up all of those toys that they wouldn't put away and they were going to go bye bye. So it was just a way of, a fun way to get my kids to pay attention to, hey, I really need to put my toys back in my toy box.
Yeah, absolutely. And that raises a really good point about asking for help, right? So I think a lot of people forget to ask for help. We forget to delegate things and boundaries, saying like I'm not going to unload the dishwasher. I remember my mom did that to us. There were three of us growing up, and she said, I'm not unloading the dishwasher. One of you has to unload the dishwasher every day. And of course we fought, right, over who
Of
was going to
course.
have to do it. But she didn't. I don't remember my mom ever unloading the dishwasher, and until she was an empty nester. But I think, if you have other people at home, certainly asking for help too, and saying, like, I'm not going to take the clothes out of the dryer and fold them. You're going to have to do it. Um, or even just simply asking, like, hey, will you go pick up the groceries or go grocery shopping or
Yeah.
take the car in, whatever it is. I think every individual person, we put too much pressure on ourselves to do everything by ourselves all the time. And we forget that most of us have at least a few people who love us and want to support us and are there for us. And so I think asking for help is another great way to really say yes to that self-care and stress management, and even kind of eliminate the stress altogether by handing it to somebody else,
Yeah.
letting them carry a little bit of the load.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that resonates with me so much because I've been that person my whole life. It
Hmm.
seemed like that just wouldn't ask for help. I wanted to do it all on my own. And we cheat other people out of the opportunity to spend that time with us and do things for us that they've maybe been wanting us to ask for help with, for one thing. And maybe it gives us time to spend with that other person, like, hey, I'm doing this activity right now. Do you mind just helping me? And then uh, reciprocal activities, though, you know what I mean? Like one person shouldn't be the one that's always giving the help. The person asking should also be giving the help sometimes too. I feel like that's really super important. But yeah, just asking for help. I remember not long ago, and this is kind of a little bit of a different topic, but along the same lines, I was listening to this other podcast about channeling. And there's this lady that channels the 12 archangels. And sometimes when I'm listening to channeled messages, I won't listen to the whole thing because it's not resonating as truth with me. But this one, I listened to the whole entire thing. And at the end, this is a popular podcaster, and he asks his guests certain questions at the end. And the last question he always asks is there any more bits of information or advice from, whoever's being channeled? And in this case, it was the archangels. And she said, yes. And she said, the angels were saying to ask for help. Ask us for help. We're here. And I was like, wow. And then she went on to say a few more things. And I was like, wow. And I felt like that was like straight to me. It's like, you need to ask for help. Quit trying to think you need to do everything on your own. Because I'm kind of a stubborn person. I hear my mom snort about that one right now, but I'm kind of a stubborn person. So I still to this day think sometimes I need to plow through things all on my own. And it's okay for us to ask for help. That doesn't mean we're less than, that we're doing something
Mm-mm.
wrong. It doesn't diminish us in any way to ask for help. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, yeah. I tell clients it's like when you were a kid, you didn't hesitate to ask for help. Your kids don't hesitate to ask for help, and it doesn't have to be anything big.
Right,
Sometimes it's like, hey, can you grab the mail on your way in? Or, it can be something really simple like because I'm home, because I work from home, I'm the primary dog walker. So I walk the dog all day, every day. But there are some days I get really tired of walking the dog. And so I tell my husband, I'm like, you're gonna have to pick up an extra shift. I'm like, do you mind taking him out, for bedtime? Or do you mind taking him? And he's like, of course not. And it's like, it's not a big deal.
right.
It has been way more of a big deal in my head about asking for
Yes.
help than it is actually asking the person for help. So I think that, if we have somebody in our life who wants to support us and love us, they're going to help us, and
Yeah,
they're not even going to think about it. It's just going to be like, absolutely. And then it's done.
right,
And we don't have to think about it anymore. So, yeah, I get tickled over the stuff that I don't ask. It's like, why didn't I just ask so and so to do that? Even
right,
work related, right? Like just delegating a task or asking somebody, to set up a meeting instead of, me doing it, whatever, but just and yeah, yeah, just simply saying like, do you mind doing this, or will you please do this,
right.
and letting it go, letting it go into the universe, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think especially around work, I think it makes people feel needed and appreciated if you ask them to do something. I mean, like not all the time, like dumping everything on them. That's not what
Yeah.
I mean. But
Yeah.
there are some people in work situations that are waiting to feel needed. So when you ask them to do something, they're like, "Oh, she trusts me with this," and that's why she
Mhm.
asked me to do it. And then they want to do the best job for you. And then when you express appreciation for that, it just becomes this beautiful cycle of give and take in that situation. And it builds trust, I feel.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And how great does it feel to be appreciated,
Oh my
and
gosh.
to have somebody thank you for something, and to know that you have been in service to that person as well. Um it goes both ways. You're helping somebody and then they appreciate it, and then hopefully that'll trickle down, to other people in your life and everything, and we create this nice flow of appreciation and balance. And that's what I'm all about. I'm like, let's just have balance.
Yeah.
Or let's just create a little bit more flow. But yeah, I mean, it's wonderful too, and it's not something I don't think we really think about. We
Mm,
don't think that and asking somebody to do something, or in trusting somebody to do something, that it actually helps lift them up and maybe fill their cup or give them a little bit more purpose as well.
It does. It absolutely does. And we only need to think about how we feel when someone asks us for us to realize that, hey, they're people too. So they're probably feeling the same thing. I think we forget about stuff like that, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think sometimes we get bogged down in what we have to do, that if somebody does ask us to do something, it may feel a little like, it's like that other side of like, I can't believe they asked me to do that. But it's like, that's not really, that probably means that they're going through something. I know anytime I've reacted to something like that, it's because I haven't set good enough boundaries for myself.
Mhm.
And that I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed, or I'm already feeling, but if it's something for someone, it's a little different. If it's a favor, or if it's, like, this would really help me out. Could you do this? It's like, okay, yeah, absolutely. And then something not as important, may be pushed down to tomorrow or something. It's just, I think being in service helps us a lot. So when we're serving other human beings and other people in our lives and loved ones, we automatically feel better. We
Yeah.
automatically feel more on purpose and have joy, and kind of feel like we're giving back, to that person. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that feeling of fulfillment where
Yeah.
you've made life a little bit easier or help them cope with something a little bit better or just been there to listen. I mean, sometimes let's face it, that's all we need is to feel like we're being heard that day. So for someone just to have listened to us that day, it's beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to be seen and heard.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
did mention boundaries, and this topic keeps coming up also in my world right now. So what is your take on the healthy boundaries situation?
It's boundaries are so interesting because it's something that we never talk about. Like, I don't ever remember growing up ever having a conversation about boundaries with anybody. Like, I don't, and I'm 41. I don't remember talking about it with my mom. I don't remember talking about it with my friends. Like, it was just nothing I ever really talked about. I didn't realize how bad my boundaries were until I was in my late 30s. And I was a single mom at the time. I was really stressed out. I was working two jobs. I was hanging on by like a thread of sanity. It
Yeah,
was just like one more thing, and that was going to be it. Um, but I realized I had done it all to myself because I hadn't set any boundaries. So the first thing I do when I start working with clients is we look at the schedule over the next couple of months, and I say, what can you say no to?
yeah,
It isn't working anymore. Like, what are you doing that is just, it is no longer serving you? It is causing you anxiety or whatever it is. Like, what is it? There has to be something. There's always something. And sometimes it's someone. There is someone that they are spending way too much time with, and it's time for a break.
yeah,
Maybe it's their best friend or their cousin or something, but they're, in a really bad headspace or really a negative person, and they're, calling them every day. And it's like, okay, let's take a few days off from that person. Obviously you can't just kick people out of your life, well, not that easily,
you
but
can.
you can. You
I've done
absolutely
it.
can. I was gonna say, if you have to, whatever you got to do. But most people don't want to just, kick somebody out like that. But some people do. I have done it too. It took some time, but sometimes it is necessary. But I do. I think that's where we start. we start with the one thing that's no longer working. If grocery shopping once a week is just stressing you out and you hate it and you're sitting in your car crying because you hate to do it so much, it's time to place an online order and go pick those groceries up. It's
Absolutely.
time to have that delivered. It's time to let go of whatever it is. So I think that's where we start, as far as boundaries, and then time boundaries. Time boundaries are huge.
Hmm.
Um, I work with a lot of moms who, again, they don't have time in the morning. So for themselves. So we set bedtime routines or evening routines. So it's like after my kids go to bed, then I'm going to do XYZ. It can be wash my face, lotion my hands, have a glass of wine, whatever. But that's what they do every night before they go to bed. And that time boundary, they don't let anything interrupt, non-negotiable time, right? So they
Right.
don't let anything interrupt that time. Um, and I think people are afraid to say no.
Oh, yes.
That's the other thing. I have no trouble saying no.
Yeah.
But I'm
I don't
I'm that
anymore,
just
but I
is that
used
type of
to.
personality. A
Yeah.
lot of people do. A lot of people do. A lot of people are yes sayers, and I know a lot of people pleasers. No is a really hard word to say sometimes, and so that is probably, I would say, the third thing that we start to work on with boundaries is saying no.
Yeah.
So if somebody invites you out and you don't feel like going, you say no.
Hmm.
If somebody texts you or calls you and say, "Is this a good time?" You say no. And
Or
you
just
you
don't
call them
answer
back
your
later,
phone. Just don't
or
answer
don't
your
answer
phone.
your phone.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you do not have
absolutely.
to push that accept key. You do not have to do
No,
it.
it can go to voicemail.
Yep.
You cannot respond to that text message, or like it's. So I do. One of the things I recommend is to just say no. To
Yeah.
start saying no. And I worked with a woman who, she's retired, so but the rest of her household works, so she's expected to like keep the house clean and cook dinner and all this other stuff. But she doesn't always want to do it, and I said, well, then say no.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's for dinner? I'm not cooking tonight.
Right.
There's plenty of food, knock yourself out. Like
Right.
there's so many different ways too, but telling her that, it was like, what? I can't. But you could just, it was hilarious. But you could feel the resistance. You could see it. It was like, I can't. Can I do that? I'm like, you can absolutely do that. Like, you can absolutely say no. So,
Yeah.
and then what happens when we say no? Nothing happens when
Yeah.
we say no.
Yeah. Usually, yeah.
That's,
Yeah. Usually
nothing
it's
happens.
nothing big deal. It's no big deal most of the time. I
It's
mean,
no big deal. Yeah,
we build up
yeah.
this story in our
So,
head about how things are going to go, and then it's not like that.
yeah, those expectations that we were talking about earlier. It's like,
Absolutely.
well, if I say no, they may get upset, or they may get, mad, or I may get attitude, or it doesn't matter. Like, it's all, once you say no, you say no, and that's it. They will figure it out,
Yeah.
especially if they're adults, right?
Yes.
We don't have trouble telling our kids no, sometimes, or a lot of times, depending on, what they're asking for. So we need to kind of, I think, have the same boundaries with other people too, is that we just say no sometimes.
Yeah. And it's okay. And we don't have to justify it. We don't.
No,
I
no,
just know.
no. It's that there's that great, no is a complete sentence, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Like, yeah, no.
It
No,
is.
thank you. If you want to, try to be more polite, no, thank you. But just say no is very important for boundaries, I think.
Absolutely. So the lady that that you said, just tell them no, that you're not cooking that night. How did she do with that? Did she
She
find
did great.
she found freedom
She
in
said
that?
as soon as she did, oh my gosh, she said, as soon as I did that, I felt so empowered. I just started
That's
saying no to
awesome.
everything. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She
Oh,
was like,
that's so
I said
cool.
no to this and this and this. And I was like, yay, but because it was all stuff she didn't want to do. And it was all stuff that had become expected of her without really getting her permission. So,
Right.
she was expected to do these things and she started saying no. And it was like, she was like, my family's probably going to kill you one day because I just keep saying no. And I was just like, well, I'll take that risk. Like, that's so, yeah, I know she did great. Once that
That's
first one
awesome.
is done, it is so much easier. Yeah, it really was. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is awesome. That is so cool. And it reminds me of the saying, it's not really a saying, it's just a fact that we teach people how to treat us. So by them
Hmm.
imposing these expectations on her and her allowing it, she taught
Right.
them that she was just going to keep doing what they expected her to do,
Yeah.
and then by her going, whoop, nope, I'm not doing that anymore, and then saying no, she's now taught them that she gets to have this time and energy freedom and do she gets to say no, and that the house still runs. She still loves them, they still love her, they still respect each other,
Absolutely.
and it's a beautiful thing, and I'm sure that she will fix dinner sometimes and it'll be a beautiful and delicious and enjoyable time together. But if she doesn't feel like doing it, that's okay too.
She does something else.
Yeah,
Yeah. And nobody starves,
and nobody
you know?
starves.
Nobody starves.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I love that she stepped in her power regarding that. Because yeah, just because you're retired doesn't mean that you become the girl Friday for everyone else in the family, you know?
No, no, and it was, because she's retired, cook, clean, laundry, run all the errands, and it's like, but is that what your retirement plan looks like? Like, is
Yeah.
that when you retired, is that what you envisioned for yourself, right? And when she was like, no, I was like, well, then we need to, start making some changes. And that's the other thing is, I think sometimes we do get stuck in
Yes.
our routine and in the grind of every day, and we kind of forget that we have options.
Yes.
We can, it's really easy to just go through the motions
Mhm.
and wake up in a year and be like, what happened, or what did I do this year other than work and take care of my family, or you know, work or not work, lay around, whatever, the lifestyle is. But I think it's really easy to kind of get stuck. And we just need, sometimes we just need a little bit of a push to get us out of our own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if any of our listeners are hearing this conversation right now and they're thinking they may feel a little stuck, what would you say to them to kind of unstick themselves right now?
I would recommend taking a nice deep breath and just taking a moment to just settle and think for a second, and then again coming back to what we were talking about earlier as far as like having some fun,
Yeah.
laughing. If you feel stuck, if you feel like you're going through the motions, if you feel like your routine is kind of drowning you, or maybe you're overwhelmed, do something today that will make you laugh. Watch a funny YouTube video, watch your favorite show on whatever you watch, whether it's a sitcom, streaming service, whatever. Watch something funny. Watch, play with your pets, play with your kids. If you need to run around outside, it doesn't matter. Just do something that makes you laugh. Call someone who makes you laugh, and just, connect with somebody. We all have at least one person who brings out that silly side, or makes us smile a little easier. So connect with that person. Just do something that will make you smile a little easier and laugh a little bit today.
Yeah, that's so interesting that laughter can be the magic for getting unstuck.
I
That's
think so.
incredible. Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
that. I love it because it reminds me of this, and I actually posted this video on my profile on Facebook because I came across this, you know how you get the little reels sometimes that pop up as suggested reels.
Mhm.
There was this this video of this little boy, and he was probably, I don't know, maybe 4, and he's in his bed and he's laying down and he sits up when his mom comes in and she said, what did you name your moth? I can't remember what she said his name was, but what did you name your moth? And I think they're English because he has this accent and it's so cute. And he can't even, like, he just starts cracking up when she asks him the question. And she's like, "Oh, tell everybody what you named your moth. What's the name of your moth?" And he's just like laughing so hard he can't even hardly breathe, much less say what the moth's name is. But he named the moth you.
Ah!
And he says it, you know, it's moth you. And he just starts laughing. And this little boy's laughter is just so infectious and it's so beautiful and pure. And
Absolutely.
he's so proud of himself for naming that moth you. And it's just, I'll have to put the link with in the description box below. So if people just need a laugh, they can watch this video because I'm telling you, I don't know how anyone could watch it and not laugh. But it
Yeah,
just, you know,
absolutely.
it's so great. Laughter is such an amazing gift. And to me, the most beautiful sound in the whole entire world is a child laughing because it's so
That
pure.
um, yeah. I love the kid cackle. That just the what that kid, yeah, the kid cackle. I love it.
Yeah.
When my son did it, I used to just crack up.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Nothing at all. It's so contagious and it's so pure and just joy, just unadulterated joy. You know, truly.
Mhm.
It's amazing. But
It
I
is. Yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm so excited because that's just so amazing. Laughter will unstick you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I don't think we think about it, you
We
know?
don't.
It's not a priority, you know? It's and some people are naturally funny. Like my husband thinks he's the funniest person on the planet. But, you know, some people are just, you know, they're natural it comes naturally to them, but he doesn't laugh a lot. He's good at making other people laugh. And so I think it's interesting. We don't necessarily think about how often we're laughing or smiling. And I have found that once you do it, it becomes easier. You
Yeah.
lighten up a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
you stop taking everything so seriously. You start to kind of, you know, you feel different emotions and yeah. So I'm a big fan. I actually try to make it a priority every day to find something to laugh at or to smile at. Even fake smiling actually helps lower our blood pressure and our heart rate. So even if you have to fake it for a little while, you know, just fake it, but it will get a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, and there's certain poses that they say, like the Superman pose, where you're standing with your hands on your hips and you're kind of looking up like that, that
Oh yeah.
actually makes you feel stronger and it just changes your whole mindset just standing like that. And
Yeah,
so it's really
absolutely.
interesting.
You can Yeah, you could even, you know, make funny faces at yourself in the mirror, you know, like if you're
Yeah,
in the bathroom brushing your teeth, stick your tongue out at yourself, you know, make
yeah,
big googly eyes, whatever you need to do. But I mean, I bet you know you'll start laughing if you do that because
yeah.
it's silly, you know, it's play, and it's easy to do,
It
you
is.
know.
It is. And you get
Yeah,
better at it the more you do it. I've always been a big
you
goofball
do.
myself, so kind of comes naturally to me. So, but if it doesn't come natural, you can practice and it'll get to where it
Mhm.
feels more natural. You won't feel so awkward with it. And if you're thinking, what will other people think? It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It
doesn't.
doesn't. And most people aren't thinking about us in that way anyway.
Right.
Like most people aren't thinking about us the way that we're thinking about us. So it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
it really doesn't. They're concerned with their stuff and what
Yeah.
they have going on. They're not concerned. I'm thinking about this and I don't want to take up too much time, but I remember I think it was last year. I love loud rock music. Like anybody who knows me knows that I love loud rock music. So I'm sitting in my car and this great song is on by this band Chevelle that I listen to, and I'm in the car parked in my parking lot and I am just rocking out. Like I am like singing to the top of my lungs. My windows are up because it was hot, but I didn't have any tent at the time, so you could see right into the car. And I am just like I'm headbanging and I'm rocking out. And so the song's over, and I turn off the car and I turn around and look, and there's a mom pushing a stroller with a kid like right behind me, and she is just cracking up. Like she has watched the whole thing and she is just laughing. And I was like, hey. and and I was like, "Oh my god, did she?" And I was like, "I know she had to have seen all of that because
Yeah.
I didn't realize she was there, right?" But,
Right.
and yes, I was a little embarrassed by it because who knows if she just stood there and watched me just rock out to the song. But then I was like, "Ah, whatever," and I just got out of the car and got my stuff and went in. But it was hilarious because I apparently had an audience, and who knows, I may have made her day too by giving her
Yeah.
something to laugh at because I was like, I might as well have been at a concert, and
Yeah.
just like having the best time in my car. So don't be afraid to look silly and goofy, and yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah. And you never know,
It's
you may
always gonna be
inspire someone else to look silly and goofy
yep.
and have some fun, you know?
Ma'am.
That's
And
awesome.
and she did. She looked like she was just enjoying the show, and it was hilarious and awesome all at the same time.
Yeah.
It was
And
great.
you helped her laugh. So there you go.
I
It's
did.
that ripple
Yeah.
effect. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, Raven. I'm so happy you came on the show today. Why don't you let people know where they can find you if they'd love to have you as their coach?
Yes, thank you again. If you want to connect with me, my website is lifecoachstress.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, uh, Raven Petty. I'm in the Nashville area. If anybody local wants to connect, I have, testimonials, contact page, anything like that. And you can also sign up for a newsletter, and which I send out just once a month with stress management tips. And thank you again, Dee, for having me. I had a great time. I had a lot of fun. Definitely a great break in my day. So thank you so much.
Very welcome. And thanks again. And everyone, I'll drop her information in the description box below this video. Thank you so much for listening. I know you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast so we can get this information out there for everyone to hear, because we know that everyone needs some encouragement, upliftment, inspiration, and sometimes we just want to make someone think, right? So thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. And as always, I love you all.